Good evening. Let's call this meeting to order. It's Thursday, July 20th, 2017. The time is 6:33. This is the regular county board meeting. Roll call, please.
Michaels.
Here.
Mitchell.
Here.
Patterson.
Here.
Petrie.
Present.
Rector. Rosales.
Here.
Summers.
Here.
Tinsley.
Present.
Alex.
Here.
Anderson. Clemens.
Here.
Cowart. Cruz. Esri.
Here.
Furtado.
Here.
Goss. Harper.
Here.
Hartke.
Here.
King.
Here.
Marsh.
Here.
McGuire.
Here.
Weibel.
Present. We have a quorum. Tonight's prayer is inspired by Mr. Harper. Where is Mr. Harper? There he is, okay. He'll understand in a minute. It's from the Old Testament. Ask the Lord for rain in the springtime. It is the Lord who sends the thunderstorms. He gives showers of rain to all people and plants of the field to everyone. Amen. Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the clerk please read the notice of the meeting?
Notice is hereby given that a regular meeting of the County Board, Champaign County, Illinois, will convene on July 20th, 2017 at 6:30 p.m. in the Lyle Shields Meeting Room, Brickens Administrative Center, 1776 East Washington Street, Urbana, Illinois, in said county for the purpose of allowing and ordering payments of claims against the county, receiving and acting upon reports of committees and such other matters as may be brought before said meeting, which said meeting shall continue in session from day to day until the completion of said business.
Thank you. I seek approval of the agenda and the addenda. Moved by Ms. Cowart,
Second.
second by Mr. Rosales. Discussion, seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed, motion carries. Okay, date and times of our next regular meetings. We have the facilities meeting on Tuesday, August 8th, ELUC, August 10th, Highway and Transportation on August 11th at 9 a.m. The others are at 6:30. Committee of the Whole, that's Justice, Social Services, Policy, Personnel Appointments, and Finance, is on August 15th at 6:30. And then we have the regular county board meeting on August 24th at 6:30 here. We also have two extra meetings next month. We have the legislative budget hearings on August 28th and 29th at 6 p.m. in this room. In addition, there's going to be a study session this month on Tuesday, what's the 25th, on basically on the nursing home finances, things like that, and also with the new management. What time does that start? 6? That'll be at 6 p.m. Okay, time for public participation. I'd like to remind you that you have a maximum of 5 minutes each, with a total of all being an hour, and there's no discussion. Strictly, it's a time for you to basically to state your opinions. And first one up, please turn on the microphone and leave it on. First up is Dottie Vera Weiss.
Good evening, and thank you all for the time and the energy that you put into making Champaign County a better place to live and work. And right now, I know that you're getting ready to outline the fiscal year 2018 budget, including how to use the revenue from the public safety sales tax. It's likely to be over $4.5 million again this year. So first, what can it be used for? According to Illinois statute, it can be used for crime prevention, detention, firefighting, police, and medical ambulance or other emergency services. But more importantly, how should it be used? As background, I was at a meeting this morning to develop the community health plan for Champaign County for the next few years. It turns out for the past 20 years, every health plan has included decreasing the level of violence as one of its major priorities. But it's still on the list. And in 2016, an assessment of communities in Illinois showed that Urbana was number 261 and Champaign number 279 out of 291 in the level of violence and crime. And that's where higher numbers are worse. So that it's clear that what's been done for the past 20 years hasn't been effective at decreasing the violence. It's time to do some things differently. But what to do? Well, back in 2013, the county's Community Justice Task Force recommended a number of changes in the county's approach to justice and safety. Some of you were on the board at that time and some weren't, and to those who weren't, I really commend it to your reading. They described programs that would decrease the level of violence over time, and because of this would be cost-effective in the long run. ILPP, the Institute for Law and Policy Planning, also supported these recommendations. The 5 main programs were, first, to expand the use of restorative justice practices and programs, in which people make amends for the harms that they've caused, they learn how to communicate and resolve problems, and this breaks the cycle of revenge and violence. Second, to establish a pretrial services program for people who've been arrested, so that instead of using their ability to post money bail to determine if they should be released from jail, there would be an evidence-based assessment of their likelihood of missing their court dates or of committing a new crime, especially a violent crime, and with some community supervision provided if needed. And this has now been recommended by the administrative law offices of the state Supreme Court, that all counties do this. Third, develop a system of care for behavioral health, which includes mental health and substance use, to address the underlying needs of people in our communities that sometimes lead to arrest. This should include a crisis and stabilization center accessible to the community as well as to law enforcement, again, to be a preventive measure. Fourth, expand community sanctions in which people are sentenced to community service instead of jail or prison time, so they can maintain their family and community ties and then be less likely to get involved in a crime situation. And fifth, develop reentry programs for people returning to the community from the Illinois Department of Corrections or jail. These programs have a major impact in reducing recidivism. Now, the county and law enforcement have done some of these things, but not a whole lot, and there's really still a great need for these programs. In order to pay the upfront costs for them, the task force recommended 2 main strategies. One was seeking grant funding, and second was using revenue from the public safety sales tax. They specifically recommended increasing the portion of the tax that's used for prevention from the current 5% to 30% or more. And they also encourage collaboration between the county board in general, the mental health board, the cities, our other community resources such as the hospitals for this, and to work collaboratively. So it takes us back to the question, what should the public safety sales tax be used for? I'd suggest, and many of you know that I'm part of the group Build Programs, Not Jails, we all suggest that we follow the recommendation from the Community Justice Task Force and from ILPP and increase the amount of funds for these programs from 5% to 30% or more. That way we can decrease the level of violence in our community and make it a better place to live and work. Thank you very much.
Next is Mark Enslin.
I'm Mark Enslin of Urbana. I wanted to speak to the issue that Dottie Vera Weiss just spoke to. I endorse all of the recommendations that she made. And in addition, I wanted to offer a kind of a perspective that I've been thinking about in relation to public safety. I assume that every one of you is here out of some love for Champaign County. And I feel that also. However, I think that there are a number of citizens of Champaign County that do not feel loved by the county. And the way the county would show some love is by having effective programs of human services that address people who are in economic need and suffering from all of the things that connect to that, from racial disparity in our criminal justice system, from difficulties with substance abuse, which often are ways of coping with other problems, and with mental health difficulties. And browsing around at other counties around the country today, I was seeing how in some of these counties they link public safety with human services. And I think that might be a framework that might help in thinking about what to do with this budget, not only reentry, but preventing or doing some preventative measures that might keep people out of the criminal justice system in the first place. Some kind of jobs programs, educational programs, bolstering the services that are really lacking, partially because of the situation with the budget in the state, where some strong human service organizations, independent ones that were depending on state funding, were really hurting. And I think sometimes that you all might be afraid that something that the county might do would be redundant with something that the cities or the university or the state are doing. And I think actually this most recent episode with the state shows that some redundancy would actually be wise, and that there can be kind of partnership happening with different bodies of government to supplement the things that individuals and independent groups do to address what is really a problem where there's no single solution that's going to work, but anything that's positive will help to get the feeling across that Champaign County loves us. Thank you.
Copeston?
I'm Cope Compson of Urbana. I'm here to echo what you've been hearing about allocation of as high a percentage as possible from the public safety sales tax. I work with two separate groups of people, one women dealing with substance abuse issues in the county jail, and one in Danville Correctional Center. I work with the Education Justice Project and am involved with working with men who really are highly motivated to reenter and become productive members of society. The more immediate meeting, last Monday night, I sat with a group of women who were talking through the options that face them when they leave the county jail. Most of them have lost their children. They have nowhere to live that is safe. They are going back into toxic situations with family, friends, spouses who will not help them recover from their addictions. It's heartbreaking to talk to these women. They want to be good members of this community, and they do not have the options, the resources. One of the safe houses, they had to have $100 to qualify to get into the safe house. She doesn't have $100. Some very small funds can make a very large difference in individual lives. And another thing that caught my eye yesterday, there was an editorial in the New York Times about a sweeping reform act passed by the state of Louisiana providing just this kind of funding. And they did it on a purely cost-benefit analysis. It costs more to incarcerate someone, to arrest them, to prosecute, to work through the whole thing, than it does to train them to be able to support themselves. This is economic good sense, and I think that our community could really start turning some things around by providing some very basic services that address the urgent needs: education, housing, addiction, behavioral issues, mental health. These are wide-ranging problems in our community, and I think that you have within your power a tool to make an enormous difference in the quality of life for all of us. Thank you.
Mike Johnson.
Hi, I'm Mike Johnson. I'm from Champaign, Illinois. I'm here to read a statement on behalf of the Champaign-Urbana branch of Socialist Alternative in regards to money being freed from the public safety sales tax. Public safety is not more jails or more police. Public safety starts with taking care of your citizens. We believe funds should go towards services that help keep people out of jail and with their families. Dividing our community keeps us less safe. We demand the available money from the public safety sales tax go towards community-based mental health and drug dependency services, affordable housing, and job training programs. We need to give people a chance to recover outside a jail cell and transition back into the community. It's very important to note that these services will have a positive impact on the whole community, beyond those who have been incarcerated. In a budget crisis where public services are under constant threat and working people are expected to bear the brunt of the cuts, we should not turn our backs on our community, especially our most vulnerable. Spending on jails is not an investment in the safety of our community. An investment in vital community-based services is. You are our elected leaders. You have the opportunity to lead, to push this county forward, to take care of its citizens, and do more than just the status quo. You don't need to do it all at once, but make a committed step in that direction. Thank you.
Miana R. Smith stamps.
Hi, I'm from Build Programs, Not Jails. Also, we just did a quick community survey on what the community actually prefers as an alternative to building more jails and spending on more police enforcement. I'm sorry. And this is the question on the survey. It says, the opening statement is, Build Programs, Not Jails will be asking Champaign County Board, the Champaign County Board to reallocate a portion of the available $1.2 million county public safety tax away from expanding the jail system and put it towards prevention programs such as mental health services, affordable housing, and drug dependency programs, etc. And the first question was, what does public safety mean to you? And so this survey stuck out to me because I surveyed 2 different areas. I went to the Urbana Farmers Market, and that's off of Vine, Illinois. And then we went to the Silver and Water area that exact same day, and I kid you not, the responses differ greatly due to several different aspects of the person I would be surveying, like for instance, class status, race, and okay, so this was a white woman, and we asked her, what does public safety mean to you? And she says, everyone gets what they need, regardless of status, income, and orientation, etc. And the second question was, what are some suggestions you have to improve public safety in Champaign County? That her answer was citizen advisory, outreach to all neighborhoods. And the third question was, how do you think Champaign County defines public safety, and do you agree? And she responded, there's lots of focus on arrest and punishment, not much proactive effort to help communities. And this was another survey that stuck out to me. And we asked the first question, what does public safety mean to you? And she says that community is accepting of all people and limits punitive measures, safe places for homeless to sleep. And we asked her the third question, how do you think Champaign County defines public safety? Do you agree? And the response was, police and jails. I think a focus on prevention and health services would make for a more proactive solution to solving for crime. So, like I said, I got a multitude of answers from different people that I asked. But one thing I saw was that the people in the Silver Water area, where they suffer from high crime, where they suffer from police patrol and routine stops, they were suggesting that more money go towards towards community resources and away from expanding jail systems, and especially away from police enforcement in that area. I talked to a friend over there in the Silver Water area. It was right after Mayor Marlin spoke. She said that events like these need to happen more. It was a block party. She says events like these need to happen more. I'm sorry, and that she liked the turnout of the event, but Caleb then responded, "Well, half of the community is in jail, so who are you speaking to now?" You know, she's coming out and supporting these events, but so many of the community members are locked up as a result of not being able to get access to the resources that could have prevented such a turnout. And so also I noticed in that area, one second, a lot of the residents said that their children don't have resources as far as parks and things to do in the spare time. So just like, I talked to one resident, I forgot her name, I'm sorry, but I was asking her, how do you think that public safety tax should be spent? She says that one, which I got a lot, that there could be streetlights, more streetlights in that area. And she says that resources such as mental health facilities and parks for the kids to play in would also help deter crime in that area. Because when the kids are out on the street and they're interacting with the people that are believed to be causing crime, there is risk of affiliation on that, just on that background. So, and okay, and that's all. Thank you. Yeah.
Belden Fields.
Good evening. I support what the previous speakers said, but there's another thing that troubles me very much in this county, and that is the number of deaths in the jail. I find it appalling that people are committing suicide, that people are dying because of drug withdrawal. Yes, I think perhaps the people who run the jail are partially responsible, but I think it's too easy just to blame them. I think it's the people who make the decisions for this county and how they allocate the resources that exist in this county are the ones who have the responsibility to do something about this. And I would be very disappointed in this legislative body, our county board, if you did not approve increased resources that are being recommended for addiction treatment and for other social services which are needed to keep people out of the jail who ought not to be there in the first place. Thank you.
Harry Michelide?
Exactly.
Hi, excellent.
Hold on. Hello, thank you for coming out, giving your time to our community. My name is Harry Michelide. I'm a graduate student at the university. Basically, this is just me agreeing with everybody else, but in my own way. So at the beginning of the meeting, you spoke that the rain falls for everyone and the plants grow for everyone. But last year, when Richard Turner needed our help with his schizophrenia, we instead sent cops to him and they killed him. The police killed Keewan Carrington. 3 people have died in the jail recently. Last month, Officer Hobson shot an unarmed man in the shoulder. This is the opposite of public safety. People commit crimes when they're desperate and impoverished, and if the public safety tax is allowable to be used for crime prevention, then let's prevent crimes by healing people and allocate the public safety tax away from jails and police and put it towards healing people. Thank you.
Jocelyn Robledo?
Hello, my name is Jocelyn Robledo, and I'm a part of Build Programs Not Jails. I'm also a resident of Champaign County and a taxpayer. So I want to talk about the idea of public safety, just as everyone before me has. And I want to talk about more broad, in a broad sense, what does it mean when we discuss public safety? Because it seems to me, looking at the public safety tax, sort of where all that money goes, it seems that the county right now is prioritizing jails and incarceration. And for me personally, that's not what I think of when I think of public safety. And I would like to invite everyone here today to look at the breakdown of the allocations of the about $4 million, so we can see clearly, once again, what the county seems to be prioritizing right now. And also really question whether it represents your views and all of Champaign-Urbana's views on public safety. As I said before, it does not represent mine. So, as Miana before, I've also asked dozens of community members around Champaign-Urbana to let me know what public safety means to them. And what they believe Champaign County is saying public safety is. And many people who I encountered did not agree that the county should be defining and spending money that's supposed to be towards public safety solely on reactionary measures such as incarceration. Rather, I have come across many people who understand that public safety means stopping a crime before it happens. This means giving people opportunities to make other choices before resorting to crime. This means preventative measures, which can range from academic opportunities to affordable housing, mental health services, drug rehabilitation services, and much more. As a taxpayer and community member, I would like my county to represent my views, especially when it comes to the allocation of our money. Sorry. Study after study has proven that incarceration alone not only fails to prevent crime, but actually promotes it. Many people have also shared their stories on the difficulty of family and friends to recuperate economically and socially after being convicted of crime. While there is a lot of hard work currently being done to help formerly incarcerated people, there's still a lot more that needs to be done. And we all need to understand the importance of investing in our community. We already have $3 million of the public safety tax allocated, mostly towards an antiquated system that includes jail and home detentions and so on. Let's make sure that the almost $1.2 million available left for allocation will be placed on doing some good in our community. It's time to invest in the people of Champaign County. This will be a positive direction for us as individuals as well for our community as a whole. Thank you.
Albert Stabler.
Hi, thanks everyone. Should have printed this bigger, so I'll be reading at you through a piece of paper, sorry. I actually wrote a letter to the News Gazette. It was sort of overlooked and forgotten, so you get to hear it first from me. And it is reiterating a lot of what you heard, but it's with some numbers that hopefully help people to put things together. In order to protect citizens, communities cannot simply rely on law enforcement. Studies have shown that access to employment, education, housing, recreation, pretrial services, substance abuse, and mental health treatment services do more to reduce recidivism in a more cost-effective manner than do arresting and detaining people. After retiring some construction and architectural improvement bonds, Champaign County's public safety budget will have a surplus of over $1 million, as Jocelyn said, newly available this year out of a total public safety sales tax revenue of over $4.75 million in 2017's budget, and the total justice and public safety budget of over $27 million. So it's, a drop in the bucket. This year, the county budgeted around $60,000 on its drug court, $234,000 on its juvenile assessment center, and $100,000 towards a reentry program with Rosecrans. This totals just under $400,000, less than 8% of the public safety sales tax revenue, and less than 2% of the overall public safety budget. And And then as Dottie Vera Weiss told you, in 2013, reports by the Community Justice Task Force and another from the Institute for Law and Policy Planning recommended that the county dramatically increase the share of the public safety sales tax revenue devoted to preventative measures. And both reports are available online. And just a couple of ideas I'm going to put out here is that we've really lost a lot of funding for homeless shelters, just looking after people who don't have a place to stay, which directly affects people trying to reenter society after being in jail or prison. Another thing that's lost money in the last couple of years is lead abatement, toxin abatement services. I have a 19-month-old daughter, and I couldn't get my house checked out for free or a blood test. So these are important things to think about. So I encourage folks on the board to do what Jocelyn and Leanna have done, which is to talk to people in the community and hear what people have to say. I mean, my street doesn't have street lights. I think street lights would make a big difference. That was little, seemingly little things like that can mean a lot and cause a lot less harm than good. Thank you.
Gus Wood. Gus Wood. Not here. Bobby Trist.
Good evening. My name is Bobby Trist. I live in Champaign, and I lived in Champaign-Urbana for 40 years. This summer, 50 years ago, there were race riots in Detroit and several other cities. I was a young adult at the time living in Detroit, where I had grown up, and I tried to give blood because there was a call for that. I wasn't able to because I was deficient on iron, but now I know how to take iron pills, and I'm able to do that regularly. But nevertheless, it left a very, I have a very stark memory of that and the other riots that have been occurring since Watts and other riots around the country. As a result of those riots, I think there were 4 or 5 in '67. The Kerner Commission was founded, and they issued a report, and the conclusion went something like, to paraphrase, that we were fast becoming a society, 2 societies, one black, one white, and unequal. 50 years later, this is still true, and the one surviving member of that commission reported tonight on NPR and said that for the first 10 years after the report was issued, there were advances made in all the areas of recommendation, and then at about 10 years out, it started to stand still and then went backwards. And so we're basically where we were 50 years ago. As I said, I've been here 40 years and always thought this a very progressive community, and it's much more so than when I moved here. But I've been shocked to learn in the 5.5 years that I've been involved with Bail Programs Not Jails that our stats reflect the situation in Ferguson. We're just as unbalanced racially. So I've also been involved with a young woman that I've known since she was a child, and a young African-American woman, and I see her struggle to hold her young family together. She has 2 young boys, early elementary, who are wonderful children, and she has major, major health problems. Their father is in prison. The fact of mass incarceration devastates poor community of color all over this country, including here. I've been a single parent with 2 small children, and I know how difficult it is. But my community had resources I could call upon. It was still hard. A great number of adults, mostly male, are absent from her community and every poor community of color in this country. So we need drug programs here in Champaign County so no one else has to die screaming from the pain of withdrawal in our jail. We need homeless shelters so no one need to be in danger of freezing to death on our streets, which has happened. I can't tell you how recently, but I know it's happened. And we need to change the law to allow people with who are formerly incarcerated, who serve their time, to be able to live with family in public housing. Someone pointed out when George W. Bush was president that one of his daughters got caught with, I don't remember if it was marijuana or something like that, but somebody pointed out that he was living in public housing, i.e. the White House, but she wasn't kicked out, and he wasn't kicked out either. So we need to allow that same sort of privilege so that people are not in danger of being back on the street where they're likely to sink into recidivism and crime. Please use a larger portion of the public safety sales tax for resources for our citizens. Thank you.
John Milano.
Yes, hi, I'm John. I'm also with BPNJ and some other groups as well. I'll try to keep this kind of brief. Hi, I'm John. I noticed you began the meeting with a verse from the Bible. I know you know where this is going. I'm not especially religious, but even I've heard quotes, from the Bible, from Jesus, that implore us to take care of the least of us, and that what you have done, as you have done unto others, you have done unto me, and that kind of stuff. Now, I believe this to mean that we should take care of other people's physical needs, that their spiritual needs are their own business. Their walk with God or the universe or what have you is something far more personal. And anyway, I believe that to mean homeless shelters, food drives, beating police pistols into plowshares, that sort of thing. Thank you.
Again, another call for Gus Wood. Gus Wood. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak tonight?
May I speak?
Okay, go ahead. If you could fill out a form afterwards, be fine.
Okay, for sure. My name is Derek. I'm a student at the University of Illinois. My grandparents live here in Champaign, Champaign County. A couple of years ago, my grandfather died with a lot of suffering, and it took a toll on my cousin, who's been struggling his whole life with drug addiction. He'd recently been promoted to the manager at McDonald's. He was working very hard. The people there loved him. But this really hit him hard because my grandfather was the only person in his life that was really a support figure. He was using marijuana, and he was caught with marijuana, and he was sent to jail. While he was in jail, he lost his job. My uncle, who's an alcoholic, has been an alcoholic since he was pretty young because he didn't have the resources, was stealing money from my grandmother, stealing medication from my grandmother, and my cousin wasn't there to protect him. He was mocking my sick grandmother, who could barely speak and breathe from years of smoking. Had my cousin been there, this stuff would not have happened. Now, my cousin was sent to jail for minor marijuana charges. If we put less emphasis on things like this and more emphasis on the things that these people have been talking about, all of them behind me, then it would make much greater change. Because every one of us can think of little anecdotes like this, examples of how it's important to have community resources over more jailing and more law enforcement. I mean, they're important to an extent, but I definitely think that we need to change our direction. Thank you.
Is there any other public participation? Please come forward. If you could again fill out a form afterwards, get it to me.
Hi, my name is Kelly Wiggin, and I'm a resident of Urbana. And I wasn't particularly prepared to speak today, but I know a lot of numbers and I keep them in my head. So I will talk to you about some numbers really quickly that pertain to the issue that we've been discussing. The United States, as I think you probably all are aware, has a higher percentage of its citizens incarcerated than any other in the industrialized world. Everywhere else, they have fewer people incarcerated. And when you think about public safety, there are actually Nobel Prize-winning economists who have done the hard math on how much you can spend on programs and how much it saves you in having to pay for incarceration down the road. James Heckman, for instance, he did the hard math that shows, among other things, that every dollar you spend on high-quality early childhood education is more than a real dollar that you don't have to spend on incarceration later. Similarly, there have been numerous economists who have looked at the question of homelessness and programs that help with recidivism, and not just recidivism, but even helping people keep from breaking the law in the first place when they find themselves in a homeless situation. And programs that will help with that, every dollar you spend on them has a payback in the terms of money that you don't have to spend later for incarceration, because it is effective public safety. It's also true with regard to drug rehabilitation and detox. I think the hard numbers are not quite as clear as they are with universal high-quality early childhood education, as in it's not more than a real dollar you get back that you don't have to spend on incarceration when you spend it on detox. But it is close. And it's something that you should think about. That Louisiana study that looked at the actual math of what kind of money that you can save if you retrain people instead of spending money to keep them in jail is really, really, really important. And it is a public safety matter. I could tell you more numbers, but I'll be quiet. But if any of you have questions about numbers and where I get sources for things, please come see me later, because I read a lot of books and I know math. Thank you.
One last call for public participation. Seeing none, we'll close that. You want, okay,
I'll be brief.
okay.
I actually wasn't, for the record, my name's Aaron Bryant. I live in Urbana, Illinois, and yeah, I'll fill out a form for you in a bit. I don't think anything needs to be said to hammer home any further that your constituents in this room, and I'm sure in the greater community, would like to see a change in the status quo. We can talk facts, we can talk figures, we can go over research. It's all there, it all backs up what everybody here is saying, and there's nobody on the other side of this saying that a stronger, more militant police force is going to have a stronger effect. And I guess what I want to do is just kind of hammer home for you that you have been trusted by your constituents, by the public, by this community to help. You have been trusted with a great amount of money. I mean, it's not federal government level of money, but $1 million is a lot of money probably to everybody sitting in this room. And the amount of a difference that just a little bit of that going to the right places to service the right individuals, the amount of change for the better that can do is almost incalculable. And so I just want to, the same as everybody else here, to encourage you to take this seriously, to take your responsibilities seriously. When you go to do your budget analysis, when you go to draft up, the documents on who gets what money where, instead of this being a normal budget planning operation, take what has been said here seriously and consider what you can do to make a change. And that's not a partisan issue. That's not a Democrat or a Republican thing. That is the community that has put you in a position to help them is asking for your support. They're saying that they don't think that an increase in the number of jail cells at, our extension facility is going to be as an effective way to spend our money as other things we can do. And so I just would like to thank you all for your time and for listening to all of us, and I hope you will seriously consider what has been said. Thank you.
Okay, let's close public participation. Thank you very much. Let's move on to communications from county board members. Are there any communications tonight? Seeing none, let's move on to seek approval of the minutes of June 22nd, 2017. Moved by Mr. Mitchell, second by Mr. Esri. Discussion on the minutes. Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. The only one committee met this month, that was County Facilities. There's no action from them. Let's move right on to Finance. Mr. Alex.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll start with item 11A1. Is adoption of resolution number 10040, amending the schedule of authorized positions for the Champaign County Children's Advocacy Center. May I have a motion to approve? Moved by Ms. Court and seconded by Ms. Cruz. Discussion?
Actually, Mr. Alex, I think I'm supposed to do that.
I'm sorry, this is not a cow meeting.
That's all right.
I'm
You
in
did a
cow
good job.
mode. This being a county board meeting, I move adoption of resolution number 10040, amending the schedule of authorized positions for the Champaign County Children's Advocacy Center. Thank you for reminding me of the rules.
Well, who's the second on that? Mr. Hartke. Any discussion? Ms. Michaels.
Just real quickly, it talked about a position. This is not an additional position. This is just a reclassification of existing positions.
I believe we have a representative. She's shaking her head no.
No what?
No, it's not adding a position. Why don't you go ahead and say a word there?
I thought that, but.
Hello, I'm Carrie May. I'm the Executive Director of the Children's Advocacy Center. We received a grant to add a new position to our program.
Other questions? Ms. Petrie.
Oh, congratulations on the grant.
Thank
That's
you.
always very nice. For how many years is the grant?
It'll be an ongoing grant that we will reapply for every year, but it'll be a continuation grant after this year.
It will be, so that this position will have that as continuing funding.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Other questions? All right, very good. Thank you. Could you turn off the mic, Carrie, while you're there?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Oh, nursing home accounts payable update. That's Mr. Schneider. Sorry.
And actually, I believe we have the auditor here, who would probably like to speak to this. This is his memo.
Thank you. I went to Mr. Hartke and Mr. Alex's barber. I said, just do it like my friends. I guess I didn't know what I was getting into. Actually, I love it. Joshy told me to do that a long time ago. I should have. This is your monthly update on AP that we usually do at the Committee of the Whole meeting. And it's following the trend. So it's mostly just updating you on the amounts that are owed. So let's go through some of the highlights. The amount owed to the general corporate fund through the normal AP type obligations increased. Some funds were paid towards the highway department. We do the maintenance on vehicles that are owned by the nursing home. IMRF and Social Security saw increases as we had a couple of payrolls during the month. The June debt service interest payment was not made, so that is added into the total that's owed. When I authored this memo last week, we had gone through the $50,000 on June 21st, and then $185,000 on July 6th to help cover those two payrolls. As you know, earlier this week, we thought we were going to need to have another loan. Funds came in during the week, so the proper thing to do was to notice a meeting and have that in case those funds didn't come in, so we would not have a crisis tomorrow. The total obligation owed to Champaign County from the home is $1,549,444, and that increase is mostly due to the use of the loan. And I also go over that the debt is already over $1.5 million, and by comparison, at the end of 2016, November 2016, the debt was $1,346,000. So it's very concerning. Of course, we all know that the 3 payroll month is coming up. Funds are due in the treasurer's office on the last day of August to cover the payroll in September, on September 1st. So that will be the beginning of a struggle once again next month. Today, the cash balance was $292,093. The payroll that goes out tomorrow is $232,000. And then the accounts payable that's going to go out tomorrow is $53,000. SAK Management and I spent the afternoon going through the AP and picking and choosing the must-pays so that we can make sure we maintain a slight balance in the account at the end of the day. So at the end of the day tomorrow, there will be $23,000, and of course, more deposits could come in. But we went through and picked out the vendors that absolutely had to be paid this week. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Mr. Esri.
Thank you. JJ, did I do my math right in that these 6 large vendors that were owed over $100,000, the total debt owed them increased by just a little over $162,000?
Yes. And most of that,
total.
Yeah, the most of that on those large ones is actually owed to our rehab company, Health Pro Rehab Services, and actually today they are not interested in extending us credit any further. So they are going to be the next challenge for us to tackle.
Mr. McGuire.
I guess I have 2 questions, please. So going back to how much the county is owed, you compared last year to this year, and already we're at 1.3 million or above 1.3 million in what is just over half the year. In the last year, through the whole year, we only spent 1.5 million. I see a trend of almost 2.7, 2.8 million by the end of the year, or 3 million. I mean, obviously doubling it almost, right?
I don't know that I would double it. I don't know that I would go that high, but I think $2 million is probably expected. Right. Looking forward, with the need to make sure we cover payroll, I could see this board being asked to consider up to $500,000 in loans.
And that was the second part. We got $23,000 now. Mm-hmm. Even without the third payroll in September, we still have $234,000 payrolls every 2 weeks. IGT payments possible, but how much money is actually coming in, and what's the expectation?
The trend on the IGT payments has been 1 IGT payment a quarter. In the first half of the year, we got one right at the end of the first quarter and right at the beginning of the second quarter. So if it follows that trend, we would be waiting a while before we got an IGT payment. Those are usually between $160,000 and $180,000 each. It's a nice influx of cash, but it's not enough to really, I mean, it certainly helps, but it's not enough to get us too far. As far as the revenue that's coming in, SAK Management has been really beating the bushes to get the low-hanging fruit. AR that is owed to us that MPA may not have been working as hard to get near the end. They are working on it. We've had several calls and meetings with them about that. The private pay, the bills went out, and they went out and really worked it to get the private pay turned in quickly because we knew we needed to build up cash in order to make this week's payroll. The 4th of July holiday did not help. Bills went out late because of that at the beginning of the month. So revenue comes in at a steady pace. It's not at a level that we need it to be at. Medicaid payments come in on a regular basis. We get paid something. It's just not enough to meet with our expenses.
Ms. Michaels.
If I did my math right, you said 232,000, and then minus our payroll left us about 53,000 for this month in payables. And we know we have an obligation of a workout of 30, so basically.
That's included in the 53.
Right, but that left only 23 to pay
That's right.
the other people that have serviced our
right.
residents in,
This little
yeah, that's not a
10 or
lot.
12
Yeah.
invoices is all the nursing home is paying
Okay.
tomorrow,
Okay, thank you.
of which the largest is $9,200 to Ameren. So that tells you almost half of it went to one vendor.
Go ahead, Mr. Snyder.
I just want to interject here. We had definitely a slow receipt month. Through the 15th, we only had a little over $100,000 in income. By that time, and every other month in the past 6 months, we've had closer to $600,000. So obviously we were short. Fortunately, a large number of items came in this week, and we're still expecting some other items for the rest of the month. The last cash flow projection from the treasurer still showed about $806,000 in income expected for July. So it's a little bit lower than some of the previous months, but we still have a lot out there that's coming.
Further questions for Mr. Farney? Ms. Petrie.
I have a couple of clarification questions. So I understand exactly the waning patience of some of our vendors and those that are at that juncture, how much is owed to them totally? You can give us a ballpark.
I'll give you a
idea.
ballpark figure based on the vendors that have made it up the chain to me. I don't know who's calling the nursing home and talking to
Okay,
their
that's
staff.
fine.
Okay, but the ones that get passed up to me, 800,000.
Okay.
And that's not including the one company that we entered in a payment plan and have started paying down that debt. You include them, $1.1 million. We
okay.
still owe them about 300,000.
That isn't all our vendors. That's
It's not all-
just the
that's
ones
just-
that are losing
yeah,
patients.
That's just the
All
ones that
right.
are losing patients. And they are larger vendors, but important vendors.
I
mean,
appreciate that.
Therapy services is
Yes,
huge.
therapy. I heard you. Okay. With patience and permission, I'm looking at page 22, which is purchases not following purchasing
Okay.
policy, and looking at the amount for the nursing home. This is just eyeballing the number. Is it about 200,000?
Yeah, and that would be, everything that's on there is out of the wrong fiscal year, if I remember correctly. So we're paying old debts. First in, first out, basically. So that's why it's on your list, because it's 2016 expenses that we're paying with 2017 money.
But the dates here are March of 2017. Is that when?
Yeah, everything had to be transferred over when we crossed fiscal years.
I
So
see.
the date
Okay.
goes into the AS400 system is March.
All right, that helps me a bit when I looked at
Yep,
those.
yeah, March 9th, I think most of them are, something like that.
It looks to me
Somewhere
like
in-
they all say March
Yeah.
27.
That's what happened on that.
Okay. I realize it's difficult. I've been asking for 3 scenarios for a long time, and we have a new management company, which makes it even more difficult to figure out some assumptions to see what are the prospects down the line with cash flow. And as you and Dan Welch have told us, It's what's in the cash flow, I mean, the cash we have on
Mhm.
any certain day, on where we're going. At one time when you were before us, you mentioned that you were concerned that October would be a pivotal month in relationship to the nursing home. Do you still have that month as
And
a timing?
that's mostly because it's right after the September and the three payroll month.
Okay.
So yes, I still have that concern, and it's all because of the 3 payroll month.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Sure. I'd like to give SAK management credit. They, coming in on the first of the month, they had to dive right in. It's a period of transition at the home. They're learning about the vendors are learning about them, the staff is learning about them. I've talked with them more in the last 2 weeks than I did it with MPA in 6 months. They are beating the bushes. They are looking at expenses. They are looking at changing vendors that we use. They're reviewing all of the contracts. So it's a period of transition, but they're, in my opinion, doing the right things right now.
Any more, Mr. Alex?
Maybe not directly at anything in this report, but I wanted to make a couple of general observations from the finance side on the nursing home. First of all, JJ, thanks for your updates. I mean, I appreciate that both you and Dan are staying on top of this, on a daily basis, as we need to do. I will note that we have a little bit of good news, which is the state, at long last, has a budget and an appropriation bill. That means I think it is likely that Medicaid payments will continue coming in a timely fashion, which eliminates what frankly was my worst disaster scenario.
Yes.
Of the home having to close post haste
Right.
because checks stopped showing up from Springfield, and I think now knock on wood, I think it is likely that that is not going to happen.
I agree.
So
Yes.
I feel confident that regardless what direction we go with the nursing home, we will be able to keep that facility open and keep those beds and jobs here in Champaign County. I think what I take from your numbers is that we are absolutely going to have to advance the nursing home more money from the fund balance before the end of the year. I think your estimate of another $500,000 is not unrealistic. That means that hopefully this board appreciates the need to do that rather than cut off our new management company and our broker at the knees, and I expect this board will be supportive of that. But I would also encourage members of the board to carefully consider how we will rebuild the fund balance to restore the money that we are using to help shore up the nursing home.
Mm-hmm.
One option is if SAK does succeed in turning the nursing home around financially, if the nursing home can become cash flow positive, we could rebuild the fund balance with the positive cash flow. Another option is if they're unable to do that and we do pursue a sale or a transfer, we could rebuild the fund balance with the proceeds of that sale or whatever arrangement that was. And of course, we also have to consider, and I'll give thanks to Mr. McGuire, who circulated an email earlier noting that cuts to other county services may ultimately be necessary in order to preserve the fund balance. So those are some of our options, and I will encourage everybody to be here next Tuesday for this study session, because I think the most useful information we will get in years on the sustainability of the nursing home will be initial impressions from the new management company. I suspect that they will have a lot to say Tuesday, and I think the next several months will be pivotal, both in terms of hearing from them, in terms of hearing from the broker, and in terms of hearing reports on the ongoing efforts to identify potential partners in the community who'd be interested in operating the nursing home or supporting the nursing home. So I am optimistic about the fact that we now have a state budget, and I think we will be able to keep the home open in one form or another. But definitely I appreciate you staying on top of this, and hope everybody can be here Tuesday to help dig into these issues in more depth.
The treasurer and I are both planning on being here on Tuesday. If there's something that you think that we can provide to you, let us know ahead of time so we can prepare those numbers, because neither of us have all of this off the top of our head, but we're glad to provide it.
All right, I think that's it, Mr. Farney. Thank you very much. Oh, Mr. Schneider has something to say?
Just a couple quick comments, Mr. Chair. In addition to our treasurer and auditor, we'll have SAK at the meeting next week, of course. We'll also have Mr. Jandris from Marcus and Millichap, our broker, to talk about what we're doing and our plans. I also want to just mention briefly that thanks to Senator Bennett's actions, I was able to talk with one of the officials at HFS this week regarding status of Medicaid. No news on IGT money at this time, but the medical programs office is going to be working with our admissions director at the nursing home to go over those open applications to make sure that everything is in and then it's being processed appropriately. So,
Ms. Petrie.
How many open applications exist presently, and does that number include those that are so very old and are sort of at the back of the line?
the last number I received, I don't have a number this week. I've been out of the office, as you know. The last number I had was about 36, and Josh had indicated that there wasn't or hasn't been any real movement for several weeks yet. So we're pretty much status quo where we were from the last meeting.
All right, Mr. McGuire, last comment?
Yes, Rick was on vacation for the last 4 or 5 days, except he got a bunch of phone calls.
He was busy while he was gone. Okay, let's go on to items 3 and 4. Rick, why don't you just do both of those?
Actually, I'm going to defer to Ms. Ogden on the fund projection and budget change report.
You have a copy of the June monthly budget report in front of you. Since the May report, there has been some continued slight deterioration in projected revenues, mostly being driven by continued declines in what we're projecting for income taxes. I yesterday was able to somewhat analyze the state's or actually the 10% cut that will take effect July and folded into the 2 accelerated payments that we are anticipating. I think that for fiscal year 2017 and fiscal year 2018, that we will see about a 5% reduction in income tax revenues. That number is not yet folded into what you see here as a revenue to expenditure deficit of $228,000 for income tax. So I will hopefully have a more accurate number for that next month. I want to mention that the 1-cent sales tax has continued to reflect some growth. Coming off of 2 years of declines, this is good news. However, one of the impacts that I think we're going to see in the near future is a result of the annexation of the city of Mahomet. They recently annexed 90 acres, and that included 1 business, and per my understanding that will just continue to the annexations will continue to pull additional businesses in. Fortunately for us, we now have the reciprocal agreement with the Illinois Department of Revenue, so we have a better idea of the ability to project what kind of impact that's going to have on our revenues. And I'm thinking at this point, sometime next year, that could have as much as a $73,000 loss of revenue for us in our 1-cent sales tax. In addition to that, we'll also potentially see losses in liquor license revenue and video gaming revenues as well. The state reimbursement is something that we are continuing to anticipate full reimbursement for at this point. We have been paid through August of 2016. I did check with Michael Williams today. We have not yet received a payment for July. However, now that we have a state budget, hopefully those payments will start coming in more consistently. And then the fines, bond forfeitures, DUI fines, and traffic, again, continue decline since last month. There really isn't any change on the expenditure projection.
One thing I'd like to point out, too, before we go on, as you're probably aware, the General Assembly forwarded the increases in the 911 fees, so the landline fees, which have been decreasing over the years, which fund MedCAD. We're going from 87 cents a line to $1.50 per line, so it's a historic increase in that fee, and it should substantially help out MedCAD, and as well as our budget, since we fund MedCAD, and we've had to increase our allocations to MedCAD over the years to make up for those shortages as the landlines have disappeared. So I'm hoping that we'll get at least some positive lift on that towards the second half of next year.
Mr. Alex.
Just a brief comment on Ms. Ogden's comments about annexation. Annexation certainly work both ways. They deprive the county of a little bit of tax revenue, but on the other hand, it's almost always, I think, advantageous for the county when a city or a village takes over responsibility for law enforcement and for zoning and code enforcement and so forth for businesses. Our service delivery model, as I'll remind people, is a more of a rural service model. And, if we have our sheriff's deputies taking, shoplifting reports and our planning and zoning department dealing with, neighborhood nuisance issues, we are going to be less efficient at dealing with those than the cities or villages are. So I think in the end, we would certainly like to see more of these annexations where sort of edge neighborhoods are taken over by cities rather than the opposite. So we're losing a little bit of money, but I certainly don't want to give the impression that we're discouraging Muhammad or Champaign-Urbana or anybody else from annexations.
Ms. Petrie, do you have a comment?
Well, I had it from another perspective on the annexation. It's not unusual for a short-term agreement between communities when annexation is the issue and when community is going to lose revenue to have a declining curve in that loss of revenue of 2 or 3 years. Has the county ever done anything or explored anything like that in relationship to annexation issues?
Not that I'm aware of. I know that we have done, we received surplus TIF money, but I don't know if that we've ever implemented any agreements with the cities that would mitigate the impact of annexations.
Well, I wonder if somewhere, even though Mr. Alex indicates it isn't a lot of money and maybe a gain for the county and service from the service side, but this is going to go on and on and on, especially in the southern area as those boundaries keep growing and there'll be more annexation. So it might be something at another time when we're not going into budget that be explored as to if it could be created to be a win-win and help the county not just lose a big chunk of money, but do it more on a declining curve.
Any other questions this time? Go ahead then.
I will just give an update on the sales tax collection fee that will be implemented. In my research, it looks like that this collection fee will not be imposed on the county's 1 cent or quarter-cent sales tax, only its public safety sales tax. So in fiscal year 2017, preliminary projections indicate that that will be about a $46,000 loss in revenue and double that in 2018. Moving to the summary page, the percentage of the expenditure budget that is projected is 11.7%. You can see the revenue to expenditure difference is reflected at negative $382,000. One thing that I did add this month just to make sure that everyone is aware of the 2 loans that the county currently has with the nursing home, one being for the boilers that we're asking for renewal of tonight, and the other being for the cash advance that was made that Mr. Farney mentioned earlier, the $235,000. Those loans are not reflected in the county's projected fund balance. Those are balance sheet transactions. So At some point, if the nursing home is unable to pay the county back for those loans, they would be reflected as expenditures in the general corporate fund, and at that time, they would have an impact on the county's fund balance. So I've provided that number here for you just as an information piece. That would bring the county's fund balance to $3.75 million with a percentage of expenditure budget or fund balance projection of 10.4%.
Questions, discussion? Okay, thank you. If you're done, oh, you got the last page.
Well, we do have a Moody's report here.
Oh, okay.
If you'd like for me to give you an update on that. So Mr. Snyder and I received a call from Moody's in May. They asked us for a surveillance call, and we had numerous communications with them in June, along with our bond counsel. And we were fortunate that the county was not downgraded. We retained our AA2 rating. However, we did receive a downgrade in our outlook. Previously, we had no outlook, and now the county has a negative outlook. Moody's directly tied this to, I'll just read it to you, the continued support of the county nursing home will likely continue to weaken the county's reserve position, placing downward pressure on the rating. This, I'm sure, is not a surprise to anyone here. They, on the, third page, indicate that the county's reserve levels are currently healthy, but will likely weaken over the near term given increased support for a nursing home facility, Champaign County Nursing Home, and stagnant operating revenues. So we've been reporting to you on a monthly basis that the county's revenues have been flat, if not declining in many of the particular lines. And also, when Moody's was looking at our audited results, they were looking obviously at fiscal year 2015 because our 2016 audit is not yet ready. However, Mr. Snyder and I did indicate to them that the unaudited deficit for fiscal year 2016 was $670,000. And as you know, we're projecting revenue to expenditure deficit for fiscal year 2018 of in excess of $800,000. So again, I think we were fortunate to avert a downgrade in our rating. But we need to make sure that we continue to be as proactive as possible to protect the county's fund balance. And I have one piece of good news. The county did receive the Distinguished Budget Award for its fiscal year 2017 budget.
Questions, comments? Mr. Alex.
Tammy, this was obviously issued before the resolution of the budget, the state budget situation. Do you have a feel for the extent to which that weighed the state's impasse there, weighed into the ratings of counties, ours or others?
I think that it did weigh in. Rick, feel free to interject at any time, but they didn't tie that specifically to our downgrade in the outlook. One thing that we did have to explain in detail was the AOIC funding, the state reimbursement, and the timing of that, which was, you know, we had early receipt of revenue, or 2016 receipt of revenue in 2015, and that, of course, caused, you know, some issues for 2016. But I think we were able to explain that well enough to appease them. Mr. Snyder, do you have further input?
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of emphasis on the state budget condition. I'll tell you, just to give you some perspective of the calls, we had probably about 5 calls altogether with Moody's. I'd say about half the time was spent on the nursing home and half the time on every other issue that we had with the county. So that was clearly by far the most important issue to them.
And if I could follow up, how often do they do this?
I can't speak to that. I mean, not, you know, I've only been here a couple of years. With the last refunding that we did not have a call from them. So this was the first time since I've been with the county in 2.5 years that we received a call.
I guess the reason I'm asking is obviously with the change with the approval of the state budget, when there is a change in the material situation at the nursing home, a turnaround or a transfer, whatever that ends up being, obviously at some point we will want to be, we will want to be reevaluated if we think it's going to be in our advantage. Is that something that we can initiate, or is this something that they just do every few years on a schedule?
I think we could request a surveillance call. I don't know whether they would grant that or not. One thing that they have implemented that is new is, and I can't remember the term that they use, but an annual update of sorts. That's a new process that they've implemented. I had reached out to Moody's several months ago just to get a feel for them, what their expectation level was from the county to determine how proactive we needed to be in terms of reporting material impacts. And basically they said to me that if we're not contacting you, then you don't need to contact us.
Okay, that's, I guess, what I wanted to know. Thank you.
One of the other things that seemed interesting to me, I think that they proactively monitor news reports. So they were mentioning a number of articles that they had read about Champaign County. I think that may have actually triggered this. Can't say for sure, but have a feeling.
Ms. Michaels.
I was just wondering, with the bond refunding, maybe that kind of also triggered them to start looking at things, or at least take a deeper look than what they normally would, like put us more on the radar also, because we did all of that refunding just in this last year or so. And I wonder if maybe that triggers like a soft audit or whatever you want to call it.
I don't think that it did, because in between the bond refunding and this surveillance call, we also had a change in the rating for our debt certificate that was based on a methodology change that they had implemented. And at that time, I would have thought if there was going to be any other type of issues that they would have perhaps addressed that as well.
Anything else to report? Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you. Okay, back to you, Mr. Alex.
Thank you, Chairman Weibel. I move adoption of resolution number 10029, authorizing purchases not following the purchasing policy.
Is there a second? Second by Ms. Michaels. Discussion? See none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Weibel. I move adoption of resolution number 10030, authorizing payment of claims.
Second by Mr. Esri. Discussion? See none, all in favor? All opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move adoption of resolution number 10031, authorizing budget amendment 17-30, increased appropriations of $200, offset by increased revenue of $200 in recognition of a donation from AFSCME to help with the expenses for the Champaign County Employees Health Fair. We thank you for their support, and I would note that this requires a roll call and 15 votes for passage.
Second by Mr. Hartke. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Michaels? Yes. Mitchell? Yes. Patterson? Yes. Petrie?
Yes.
Rosales? Yes. Summers? Yes. Tinsley?
Yes.
Alex? Yes. Clemens? Yes. Cowart? Yes. Cruz? Yes. Esri?
Yes.
Furtado? Yes. Harper? Yes. Hartke?
Yes.
King? Yes. Marsh?
Yes.
McGuire? Chairman Weibel.
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move adoption of resolution number 10032, authorizing renewal of a loan from the Champaign County General Corporate Fund to the Nursing Home Fund, specifically the loan for the emergency replacement of the boilers that was made last year.
Second by Ms. Cowart, and
I would also note this requires a roll call on 15
well,
votes.
we're pretty sure it does.
Well, it requires a roll call.
We're gonna have a
still
roll call
working on the
vote
15 votes,
yeah.
but it's not a budget amendment. Rick and I talked about this earlier. The original loan we did take 15 votes, so it seems appropriate the extension gets 15 votes, but we'll do some research if we have to.
We, as staff recommends that we approve this. As Ms. Ogden pointed out, if we don't renew the loan, it would probably have a negative impact on our fund balance immediately. So as we have some options going forward to plan how to deal with the debt, I would ask that we approve this.
Further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Michaels. Mitchell. Patterson. Petrie.
Yes.
Rosales.
Yes.
Summers. Tinsley.
Yes.
Alex. Clemens. Cowart. Cruz. Esri.
Yes.
Furtado. Harper. Hardkey.
Yes.
King. Marsh.
Yes.
McGuire. Chairman Webb.
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If this were a committee meeting, I would ask that we do the mobile home items and real estate items in omnibus fashion, but since this is the final opportunity to vote on these, I will do them individually. I ask for everyone's patience. These do not require roll calls. So I'll move adoption of resolution number 10033, authorizing cancellation of certificate of purchase on real estate for permanent parcel 41-20-10-326-021.
Second by Mr. Hartke. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed, motion carries.
I move adoption of resolution number 10034, authorizing the cancellation of the appropriate certificate of purchase on a mobile home for permanent parcel 30-055-2025.
Second by Mr. Tinsley. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed, motion carries.
I move adoption of resolution number 10035, authorizing the cancellation of certificate of purchase on a mobile home for permanent parcel 15-25-0208.
Second by Ms. Cowart. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed, motion carries.
Move adoption of resolution number 10036, authorizing the cancellation of certificate of purchase on a mobile home for permanent parcel 30-058-0227.
Second by Mr. Esri. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. I move adoption of resolution number 10037, authorizing the cancellation of the appropriate certificate of purchase on a mobile home for permanent parcel 30-055-0842.
Second by Ms. Michaels. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Weibel. I move adoption of resolution number 10038, authorizing an intergovernmental agreement between the Department of Children and Family Services and the Champaign County State's Attorney as included in the packet.
Second by Ms. Cowart. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move adoption of resolution number 10039, authorizing budget amendment 17-00032, increased appropriations of $16,564 for the sheriff's office, offset by increased revenue of $16,564 in receipt of overtime and revenue to pay overtime to cover University of Illinois events within the law enforcement division.
Second by Mr. Esri. Discussion.
I would note this requires a roll call and 15 votes for passage.
No discussion, roll call.
Michaels. Mitchell. Patterson. Petrie.
Yes.
Rosales.
Yes.
Summers. Tinsley.
Yes.
Alex. Clemens. Cowart. Cruz. Esri.
Yes.
Furtado. Harper. Hardkey. King. Marsh.
Yes.
McGuire. Chairman Weibel.
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I can direct your attention to the addendum, I move adoption of resolution number 10042, authorizing an intergovernmental cost-sharing agreement between Champaign County, the City of Urbana, and the Urbana Free Library to share an internet connection.
Second by Mr. Harper. Discussion. Mr. Alex.
I just wanted to thank everyone who helped put this together. This is the kind of thing we should be doing more of. It saves all three governmental entities money, and we get better service out of it. So thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, that's it for items on the agenda. Is there any other business? Ms. Petrie.
Yes, I'm sorry so many of our citizens of the county have already left to not hear this, but just a reminder that we're going into budget time. This year, we've decided not to have one session for public comment, but to encourage the public to come and take advantage of being able to make comments and to work with all of us on the county board in relationship to the issues that were spoken about this evening.
Thank you. Any other business? Mr. McGuire.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to discuss a little bit the issue of the payroll for the nursing home and the situation that we went through for the last 5 days and the crisis that was involved. And it was a serious budget issue for the nursing home in relation to the county's required reserves, puts us in a closer to a less than favorable tipping point. County Administrator comments, nursing home presentation and reports of the negative budget forecast and cash positions of our county treasurer and the auditor have supported this reality. As reported, the FY17 year-end general fund balance is projected at $4.21 million or 11.7. Obviously, Ms. Ogden's comments tonight changed that and probably will be significantly less if we don't make some changes. Of expenditures below our county financial policy's minimum reserve of 12.5%, which we all voted on in the budget from last year. The unconstrained growth of liabilities is clearly an alarming situation. With uncertainty of the state and federal funding, our general fund cannot sustain repeated withdrawals to one entity. As such, withdrawals may require cuts from other departments and services to maintain the reserve as required. These continual withdrawals have given us a negative outlook with regard to our rating. We as the board members can no longer ignore the possible catastrophic impact of Champaign County reserves and budget required to provide the mandated service required by state and local laws, the people of Champaign County. Services include important public and safety and health service of the Sheriff's Office, courts, public health, to name a few. We feel that our nursing home and its residents are better. They would be better served in their health and welfare by an entity who has a greater support base with more experience and capacity in ever-changing operations of the nursing home. It is imperative that we do not waste any more time finding a company that can weather the federal. It is imperative that we do not waste any more time finding a company that can weather the federal state regulations along with the funding disruptions that have put our once well-run nursing home on life support. It's time to get serious and move forward toward the sale of the Champaign County Nursing Home. My hope would be that this board would vote to move forward towards securing a more healthy and financially safe environment for the people of CCNH, which would assure the patients a secure future while fulfilling our mandated obligations. It is our duty to ensure that Champaign County and its citizens will receive a safe, secure, and prosperous future. We believe it's time for action to ensure that to protect the resources Champaign County used to provide important services. As Mr. Alex suggested, I sent a proposed resolution, which I hope to discuss at the COW, and it includes, as part of the direction I'd like to take or suggest to take, is that the department heads be directed to make certain cuts in personnel or public services or plans to do so to maintain or try to maintain a 12.5% fund balance that the policy of the county and accounting requirements suggest, actually they suggest a much higher fund balance so that we can protect the county's services, its fund balance, protect its credit rating, and not cut into its budget for continued unsupported loans. And I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Is there any other business? Seeing none, we're adjourned.